Hi, everybody. Pastor Cliff here with Goodness Gracious, the broadcast of Grace Community Church here in Surprise, Arizona. We're discovering the stories of the people of this congregation and people who are related to our church. And we're so glad that you tuned in. Hope you're hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it sure helps us. And I'm here today with one of my favorite people, Ned Davis. Ned Davis, a man with a big heart for mission and obviously a big heart for the Lord. Ned, it's so great to be here with you. Welcome to Goodness Gracious.
Well, it's just terrific to be here.
Did you think, now Ned was the head of the search team that brought me here. Did you ever think that you would be interviewed on the Goodness Gracious podcast when...
No, not.
This is about the last thing that either one of us thought we would be doing. But Ned, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you grew up and what exciting things happened as a younger man. I know that you have had some pretty dynamic experiences, so you're going to have to move quick.
You don't want to cover the whole thing. Basically, and to come to the thing, I started going to church when I was really young, going to Sunday school, got almost nothing out of it, and it was the type of deal where my father would drive me to church. It was an Episcopalian church, and he would show up on Christmas and Easter, and other than that we didn't go to church. I was at Sunday school, and my brother and I went. And I got to be about 13 years old, and I said, if you're not going, where do I have to go?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Where was this, Ned?
This was in New Jersey.
In New Jersey? Oh, I lived in Chatham. Where in Jersey were you?
Morristown.
Oh, I've hiked the Jockey Hollow Trail for
Yeah.
Boy Scouts through Morristown.
Well, it's changed a lot since I was there. Fort Nonsense, you remember that, was, it was just a derelict type thing. There was nothing there. There were some bunkers and the whole thing, and they apparently they have rehabilitated the whole thing.
Isn't that amazing?
But that's another story.
Yeah, so you grew up in Jersey, and not far from where I was living. That's so cool. And the Garden State.
Garden State. If you don't drive for Tenafly.
That's it. That's it.
Newark.
Oh, what a beauty spot! I'm telling you.
South Jersey is really nice.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But so we had a house in Bay Head, which is a resort community at the head of Barnegat Bay, which is the head of the inland waterway.
Oh yeah.
You can go through Manasquan Inlet and in a boat go all the way to Florida and never get out in the ocean. But anyway, that was we liked that a lot.
So you grew up in Jersey.
I did.
And you went to sea before you went to sea, because you eventually did go to sea.
I did. I was in the Navy and really enjoyed being in the Navy.
How did you wind up going into the Navy?
I don't know. I was in college. I always wanted to fly, and I tried to join the Air Force, but they didn't like me. And the Navy said this was right at the Cuban Missile Crisis thing, and they were more than happy to get me.
Oh, that's great.
So I went down to Pennsylvania and took a physical, and they put me in the Navy.
Well, thank you
And
for
the flight
your
program.
service.
Well, I never know how to answer that because I was having such a great time.
It's all right. It's actually possible to have a great time in the military. Hurry up and wait. So you went in at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
It was over by the time I got in. They had to take me anyway.
There you go. Did you go in as an officer?
I went in what's called the AOC program, Aviation Officer Candidate,
Okay.
which is 16 weeks of boot camp, but it's done in Pensacola, Florida, rather than at Great Lakes Naval Air Station. You come out of that and you get a commission.
Now, what were you flying?
I flew helicopters for 3.5 years, and then I transitioned to jets and was flying in the training command.
Where were you stationed most of the time?
When I was flying helicopters, I was at Quonset Point, Rhode Island. And when I moved to the training command, I was in Meridian, Mississippi.
Okay. I just remember, dangling from a line out of the helicopter, and I was so thankful that the guy up there, the guy in the chopper, knew what he was doing as a Navy chaplain. But yeah, so exciting. But so you actually had some experiences with the space program, isn't that right?
I did.
With your helicopter experiences.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, when I joined the squadron, this was a Gemini program, probably before you were born. We were involved, the squadron I was in was involved in Gemini Force 6, 7, 9, 11, and 13.
So these are the guys that fly off the aircraft carrier,
Yes.
bag of a ship, and go and pick up the capsule. Is that right? We get
They like to call it a spacecraft.
spacecraft. Yes. Thank you. And the frogmen they drop into the. Oh yeah, so exciting.
This was really a neat experience because our squadron developed the tactics for doing this. When the first time they went and hovered over the spacecraft, and the rotor washed the whole thing, and nothing happened. I mean, you couldn't see anything in the whole thing. So we said, why don't we go in at slow speed and not too far off the water? And we had SEALs in the back of the helicopter, and these guys were crazy. We were doing a night rescue one time, a night practice mission, and we're coming in, and I gave the thing, get ready, and they misinterpreted, and these guys are jumping out of the helicopter. So what we would do is we would go in, the first guy would go out of the helicopter, the second guy would go out, the third guy would push the collar, which they put around the spacecraft, out, and then he would follow. And we were like 60 feet in the air, in pitch black night, in the middle of the ocean, 60 miles off of the Bahamas, practicing in case they had to do a night recovery. But to get me in the back of a helicopter and jump out at 60 feet in the air, of course I didn't know.
Wow, but you didn't have to do the jumping out.
No, I didn't do the jumping out.
You just had to make sure that bird stayed in the air. Yeah. So from what I understand, the only more thrilling and exciting thing in your life, besides meeting Jesus, of course, was meeting your wife. And
that was cool.
Being married to Pat, that would be a greater thrill than that.
It gets better every day.
Tell us, okay, so now you spent how many years in the Navy?
6.5.
6.5, and you flew jets after you did the helicopters. And what kind of jets again?
T2 trainer.
T2. Oh, you were training guys.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big deal. Yeah. Okay. And then you got out of the military, and then what?
Then I went to work for a telephone company.
Okay.
Sales. And that was not rewarding. So then I became a stockbroker, and that was much more rewarding.
I thought you were always a pilot.
No, after that, I was talking to a friend of mine one day, and he said, well, why don't you go work for us? I had trained him, and he didn't work out. I had to fire him.
So who were you? So who were you working for at that point?
My own company. Well, it was a branch office for a couple of different brokerage firms.
Okay. So for how many years did you do the stock brokerage?
About 6.
6. And then when did you get back into flying?
That's when I got back into flying.
Oh, wow.
He said, why don't you come interview? And I said, I'm too old and I don't have enough time. And I was right, but he knew the chief pilot.
How about that?
So I spent how many years doing that? I don't know much. We started in probably 20 years.
Yeah.
Company went bankrupt, and then I got retired.
And you were flying, you weren't flying people around.
We were flying cargo.
Cargo.
DC-8s and 727s.
Okay, yeah. Now, somewhere along the line, you met Pat, and
Did.
tell us about that.
Well, here's this lady that, very attractive, had a 3-year-old daughter, and her daughter was probably as instrumental in this as she was.
Ah, okay.
But being a stepdad is hard, because you never know where you are.
Mm.
So, but we worked through it, and we have a good relationship. And then along came Tanya.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Don't know where. I think Stork or something.
Yeah.
But you know, at that point in time, we were living in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Met my wife in Denver. Grew, spent a bunch of time there. We moved there in '70. I moved there in '70. And we just left 4 years ago.
How about that?
Almost to the day. I arrived in Sun City West on May 3rd.
Now, I'm so glad that you're here, and the reason that you showed up at Grace Community Church, I think, is because you had already met the Lord. Where in your life did you have an encounter with Him where you said, I surrender all?
I didn't.
You didn't. Tell us then your experience with the Lord.
I'm always a little embarrassed about this, because most people can, the time, the date, and the hour that they got down on their knees and surrendered their life to the Lord. And basically, it never happened that way. It was just an evolution that, I need this guy in my life, and I'm going to do this, and that's what happened. I can remember I was very involved in Promise Keepers.
Mm-hmm.
Bill McCartney, who was the head, and Dave Wardell were doing this thing in Denver a long time ago. And I talked to my pastor and I said, I'd like to go to this. He said they had a meeting for pastors. And he said, well, I'll make you pastor for a day. So we went, and for probably 6 or 7 years, I was very involved with Promise Keepers.
Wow, okay.
But out of that came a relationship with the Lord, and turning my life over to Him, and becoming dependent on Him, and looking around and seeing how He has affected my life. He is there all the time.
Tell us, is there a time and a place where your faith was tested, and where you sensed God's presence, or how did you work through those times where your faith was tested?
A number of them. Listening to other interviews, I thought, there was a time when I was still flying DC-8s, and I was supposed to upgrade to captain, and I had a check ride coming, and I had not done real well the time before. So I literally, in my hotel room in Baltimore, Maryland, I got down on my knees and asked the Lord to help me get through the check ride, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
So, He has been involved in my life. I wasn't a real Christian at that time, but I did turn to Him. Sometimes, things get looking really badly. You have no place else to turn.
Well, and there are places where God will reveal Himself to you and be speaking to you, even when you're not sure where you're going with the good Lord.
And I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. Where did you get your passion for mission?
I don't know. It just came. At my other church, I was always envious of the folks on the missions committee. Mm-hmm. And we had a great missions committee, but I never joined it. But the guy that headed it up was such a good friend of mine.
Well, let me just interrupt. I want to encourage the people of Grace Community Church to get involved in the mission team. Ned has a great heart. We've got a number of folks on the team, but we need more people who love the Lord and love the whole scene for missions. I hope everybody's got a passion for mission. But Ned has done a great job with this team and getting us together, focusing on very bright, intelligent, passionate, faithful missionaries. So I want to thank you for that. Ned, we're going to have to wrap up our time, but do you have any words that you'd like to share with the folks of Grace Community Church before we go?
This is a great church. I can't wait to get back into the sanctuary.
Oh, amen.
You all come back, and I think we'll have some new folks there that we haven't seen before.
Oh, God's doing great things in this interim, this little transitional quarantine time, and it's crazy, but it's so much fun. Ned, I'm so glad that you could join us. Ned Davis, everybody, remember to tune in the next time, and don't forget, hit the subscribe button. It helps us, doesn't cost you anything. And tell your friends and family about the podcast. It's just kind of folksy, but we're having fun, and God's doing great things through it. So until the next time, the Lord bless you. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Amen.
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 Amen.